What's up, everybody? This is Trey Biddy with HawgSports, HawgSports.com. We got a lot to talk about today, mainly recruiting. Danny West is going to join us to talk about everything going on this past weekend. We'll talk a little bit about basketball recruiting as well, touch on the baseball team also, all that and more on today's episode of Hog Sports Live. And before we get started, I want to remind you there's plenty of ways to watch and listen. Always tune in on Facebook Live, of course. Be one of 85,000 Razorback fans to follow that page if you haven't done so already. Also available on YouTube. Throw us a like or a thumbs up on both of those platforms. Subscribe to the YouTube page and hit the notifications bell so you're alerted anytime we upload new videos. Also available on Apple Podcasts. We'd love to have that 5-star review from you. Let other people know what to think about the show. Also available on Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere else you can think of to find your favorite podcast. And Hog Sports, of course, is just $1 right now for your first month at HawgSports.com. I know there's not a lot of going on right now. All the Razorback sports are completed. We're in this short little period here where there's nothing going on for Razorback sports except recruiting. Recruiting has been very hot and heavy lately, and I just booked my trip to Atlanta for SEC Media Days. It's in Atlanta. I think it starts, June 18th or something like that. So I'll be there, of course, just like every year, and it's not that far off. I mean, we're less than a month before we really start diving in to football stuff, if it ever really stops. So, all right, get your questions in also. We'll get to those at the end of the show. Now, before we get started on anything else, today's show is going to be very recruiting-centric, okay? But before we get that, I just want to say congratulations to the Arkansas baseball team. Really doing stuff that nobody thought that they would be able to do up to, a month ago. Really, I don't think anybody thought Arkansas baseball would finish the way they did. Ole Miss, of course, won the College World Series, and I think we all have our opinions on that, and congrats to Ole Miss. They won the College World Series. I do think it's interesting the way that things are set up to where in baseball it feels like, and Ole Miss probably surging, playing better during the tournament than anybody, but it's interesting to me that, like, in football, almost always the best team wins the national championship, especially with the structure that we have now. Football, almost always the best team wins. In basketball, it kind of feels like that too. Maybe not quite at the same level, but pretty close to it. And I think a lot of times in basketball during the NCAA tournament, you uncover some things. You're like, well, maybe this really was the best team. And I'm not saying Ole Miss isn't the best team in the country. I think Tennessee was the best team in the country. I think Arkansas was the best team in the country last year. But it just seems in this tournament, the team that, puts together the best regular season, it just seems like they rarely win the national championship. Andrew Ellis put this poll together. I don't mean to take anything away from Ole Miss. That's not what I'm trying to do. I think everybody kind of thinks that. Probably Ole Miss fans would probably agree with that also. All right. So Andrew Ellis put this poll together. It's always fun to look back. We do this every week during football season, like for a game that's coming up, who's going to lead the team in rushing and all that stuff. Andrew did one for baseball prior to the season. Who will have the best batting average for the Hogs was the first one. Caden Wallace came in first at 35%. Chris Lanzilli was 326, and Michael Turner was 323. They did not finish very high. Michael Turner only finished 1.84 and Lanzilli 1.15%. Home run leader, Robert Moore led the Hogs with 16. Caden Wallace was the pick. Breakout, there's a lot of subjective stuff in here, like breakout guy, who's going to be the breakout hitter. Jalen Battles was the pick. Breakout candidate for pitching. Those are all subjective. Connor Nolan got it, though. Yeah, that's fair. Best newcomer, Peyton Stovall was the best newcomer. That includes everybody, though. Everybody that came in, Michael Turner, Hagan Smith, Chris Lanzilli. Best bullpen arm, again, subjective. Vermillion won that one. I think you could definitely make a case there. Stolen base leader. Nobody expected Caden Wallace. In fact, Andrew didn't even include him in the poll. Nobody expected him. He led the Hogs with 12. Most likely Golden Spikes winner, Caden Wallace, Robert Moore. Regular season finish, 73 points. So that's when I say, like, people didn't expect Arkansas to do what they did. That doesn't include Arkansas fans who have obviously very high expectations, but 73.4% said Arkansas would finish first in the SEC West, and obviously they finished second behind Texas A&M. Postseason finish, how will Arkansas' season end? 55.6% said College World Series champions. 28.25% said loss in the College World Series. Anyway, those are always kind of fun to look back on. Elite 11 is coming up this week, June 28th, so right around the corner, 28th through the 30th. Redondo Union High School in Redondo Beach, California. Arkansas's Malachi Singleton is one of 20 participants invited to the Elite 11. This thing has changed structure, over the years. Now it's 20 guys invited, and the top 11 finishers will be known as the Elite 11. So there's also several guys that Arkansas recruited that are making the trip. Jaden Rashada, who just committed to Miami, number 7 ranked quarterback in the country on the composite. Avery Johnson was another guy that they were heavily involved in, composite ranked number 12. And then, of course, Singleton, who's a composite ranked 20th. I'm going to get into some stuff, too, with Arkansas recruiting and how different services have Razorback recruits rated and stuff, and just kind of look a little bit ahead to how Arkansas's class might finish. And we're going to get into all that with Danny. Basketball, before we get to Danny, he's next, but basketball got a big commitment from Layden Blocker out of Maumelle High School, Sunrise Christian, 6'2", 175 point guard, the number 29 ranked player in the country on the 24/7 Sports composite ranking, number 5 point guard, number 2 overall in Arkansas. 24/7 Sports has him number 5 point guard, number 1 overall in Arkansas. Really nice commitment. So he's 29th. So if you're the 29th ranked player, you're basically, in the eyes of 24/7 Sports, going to be a 5-star when all said and done. 24/7 Sports has him number 34. But if you're a first-round draft pick projected, that's what they're basically trying to do with these, then you're a 5-star. So I think there's a good chance that Blocker ends up being a 5-star. I think there's a good chance that in 2023-24, he'll be your starting point guard if everything goes as expected, with Anthony Black and Nick Smith probably being one-and-dones. Then Layden Blocker probably going to be your starting point guard when the 2023-24 season arrives. Really nice pickup there with Blocker. The show goes on for Arkansas basketball. Look like there's no signs of slowing down, although it's going to be tough to replicate what they did in this last class. Arkansas had 11 visitors on campus. We're going to get to Danny West to talk about all that right now. For those of you who don't follow Danny, you can follow him at DannyWest247. Does a tremendous job for us at HawgSports.com covering recruiting. He was a busy man over the weekend with all the visitors coming in. You can read, I think he's got like 9 or 10 stories on all the visitors that came in over the weekend. Danny, how you doing, man?
What's up, Trey?
Oh, not much. Just talking about your busy weekend for Razorback recruiting, and obviously that means that you got a lot going on. Just overall, overarching, what did you think about the weekend in Fayetteville? A lot of really high-profile recruits and a lot of commitments too.
Ain't done yet. It ain't done yet. I think they're still going to add some more of these guys. They've already added 3 over the weekend. They're up to 17 now, and it got me curious earlier to kind of look back. And ironically, on this day a year ago, Nico Davier became their 12th commitment for the 22 class, and they're already at 17 for this year's class. And head on a swivel, man. I think that could jump to 18, 19 within the next 24 hours here. So long way out, but it's been a good run for them. I think they're definitely going to slide at some point. Blue Bloods are going to pass them up, but currently number 6 in the country. It's a really solid place to be. And like I said, I think they're going to add a few more here in the 10, 14 day range, and possibly a couple here in the next 24 hours. So I think they're going to be well over 20 by the time fall camp rolls around, and that's insane. And it's just, I was checking out my phone a couple of days ago, and you know how it shows you memories like on Facebook, Snapchat, all this from, what you were doing on that date 7 years ago. Well, as it turns out, I used to fish quite a bit in June. There's a lot of fishing pictures, and that's not the case anymore.
Well, you called it, Danny.
Has turned into it.
You called it before the season started. You said this is going to be a very, historically even, it's going to be a very busy month, and I think it's exceeded maybe even your expectation. 35% of the 17 commitments that they have on campus or have committed right now came in the month of June. 17 or 35%. And they're 17th right now. And you talk about some of the blue bloods and whatnot. Eventually going to, like, for example, Arkansas is one spot ahead of Georgia. Yeah. That's probably not going to hold. But what they've done right now, I've got them at 214 recruiting points. For those familiar with recruiting rankings and how that works, what that does, like based on last year's class, that would put them at 31 nationally. I think last year's class ended up with 217 points total. Yep. So they're about to easily pass that. And, I mean, some things go their way here and there. We could be talking about another top 15 for the first time ever, we could be talking about a top 15 class in Fayetteville.
Yeah, I think so. I think they're still on pace for that. And, it's interesting to me, how many are they going to sign, with the cap not being in place anymore. I think they could get up to, 26, 28 maybe. So, when all is said and done. So I'm as curious as anybody to see what that final number might end up being. I don't think even they know. I mean, how the heck could they, this early in the year with transfer portal and, the cap being removed for now. So they're in a really good spot, man. Again, every time I tweet about their updated ranking, I get people say, well, that's not going to last. It doesn't matter. Yeah, I think we all understand that. But so far, they're about to finish 6 months in a row ranked in the ranked in the top 10. Yeah. So I've never seen that before, and I've done this for a pretty long time now. So
that's what gets lost on people,
saying
Danny.
That matters, but December is all that matters. But it's been consistent.
Yeah, that's what gets lost on people, I think, is, it's not going to hold. But it never been in a situation where will it hold or not, where we've even asked that question, They're currently ranked number 6 nationally. Texas is 5th. Clemson's 4th. Penn State's 3rd. Ohio State's 2, and Notre Dame is 1. Georgia, as I mentioned, right behind them at number 7 nationally. And, I think it'll be interesting, too, to find out, like, what do these other schools do in terms of how many recruits they're adding since there is no 25 cap anymore.
Yeah, it's almost impossible to predict too, but I'm with you, man, on even some of these highly rated 3 stars. I mean, people see that and they say, well, I wanted the 4-star. Man, you're getting some good players. You think about the 3 they got this weekend. 2 of them we talked about last week. I hit you guys with every now and then my thoughts on who they ought to make room for and this and that. And 2 of them committed this weekend. So I was excited to see both of those. No relation, but R.J. Johnson and Steven Johnson, both out of Georgia. Man, they look good to me. So they're on some quality players. The size factor is noticeable. Man, they're really recruiting big kids at this point. That I guess we ought to expect that now, but size all across the board, especially a linebacker, man, what they've been able to do there. You remember when they took over what that room looked like? Yeah. It's one after another, it's become totally different. They're getting grown men out of high school. I don't see a lot of situations anymore where you take a flyer on a 6'2", 205 guy and hope like heck that he can add the weight and keep the weight and still be able to run, and he's physical enough. No, they're getting them 6'3", 240 now. So, in some cases, even have to take some weight off of them, like a Chris Paul or the latest guy, Alex Sanford. Even he might have to, lose 5'10" here and there. But I've been impressed with them. It was a really good weekend. Taking a long way around your answer here, but really good weekend. And again, I don't think they're done quite yet. The next couple of weeks ought to be still rolling.
So the first commitment they got in the month of June was Isaiah Augustave. Augustave, is that how you say it? Augustave?
I've been calling Isaiah Augustave.
Augustave, okay.
I
like that better.
It could be wrong. Yeah.
Augustave, okay.
Puts a little flair on it.
Yeah. 6'2", 200-pound running back. He is the highest rank on 24/7 Sports. He's number 18 running back in the country. I think one service has him like super low that's kind of dragging down his composite score. I think Rivals has him as a borderline 3-star. But he is the number 18th ranked running back prospect in the country on 24/7 Sports, which it makes him the highest ranked 3-star running back in the country. I think we both agree that there's a good chance that he eventually moves up to 4-star status.
I think so. You look at his production from last year, almost 1,000 yards, 16 touchdowns, almost 9 yards per carry in the state of Florida. I don't care who you are, man. That's impressive. Just a tick over. I think he ran a 100-meter in 11:01. So, I mean, at 6'2", 200, man, that's pretty good. This is a guy that, I think we talked about it last week, but they almost kind of stashed him a little bit, if that's even a phrase that we could still use nowadays. He was not, super heavily recruited. Now, he had some good offers and whatnot, but it had kind of gone quiet for him, or it seemed to me that it had, and Arkansas jumped in there and kind of hoped to keep it quiet. And, it's funny, man. We talked about it, but they only wanted one great one in this class if they could get it. And I know he's a mid-range 3 or a high 3 at this point, but you talked about it, and I think he's going to have a real good shot at potentially 4 stars before it's over. Very curious to see what he does as a senior after a big-time junior campaign last year.
The next guy that committed in the month of June, fast forward from June 5th to I think June 17th or 19th, was Christian Ford, safety out of McKinney, Texas, number 91 ranked player in Texas, 5'52" nationally, a safety, 6'1", 185. Your thoughts on that addition, Danny?
I liked him. I was pleasantly surprised that I think Gabe and some of our national guys got together and gave him a closer look and came away with an 87 grade. So that puts him at number 51 at the safety spot, according to 24/7. Very similar ranking by the composite. But I like the kid. He's not super well known at that high school. In fact, McKinney, they've got several that were very much, very more heavily recruited than Christian. Kind of came out of nowhere. Arkansas found him at a camp, really liked him. I like the film. Physical guy, 6', 185, can do a lot back there, and obviously brought him in on the weekend of the 17th, and that went rather quickly. So, he actually had some pretty good offers. A lot of Pac-12 love in there: Colorado, Arizona State, Nebraska, Minnesota. Pretty solid offers there, including TCU. So I think it's a quality get. I'm not going to tell you he's going to be a guy that comes in and plays and starts as a freshman or even a sophomore, but in time I think he's one of these high potential types that could help you in the long run.
And then fast forwarding just a little farther to June 20th, Ian Jaffard, is that how you say it? Jaffard.
Yep.
Jaffard. Oh, there's a sneaky R in there. Geffrard.
That's right.
Jaffard. That reminds me of the man with 2 brains. I don't know if you ever saw that movie. Jaffard.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. 6'6", 350. He's the number 70 ranked player in Georgia on 24/7 Sports. Listed as an offensive lineman, but Arkansas wants him as a defensive tackle. He's not super highly rated, Danny, but in my mind also, kind of like with Texas, when I see a guy's top 100 in Texas, I'm like, okay, this guy's probably a pretty darn good player. And same thing with Georgia, top 100 in Georgia, probably a pretty good player.
Yeah, I think so. And, this is a dude 6'6", 355 right now, and came up here on his official visit and was doing handstands and backflips in front of the recruits and coaches. Man, that's impressive at that size. You know what? Backflips at 6'6", 355. So the thinking here is, he plays both ways in high school at a high rate, but Arkansas may not quite have a spot for him on the offensive side of the ball, and it's really tough, as we've talked about many times, for them to find a guy like this to plug in on defense. So I don't know if he's Mount Cody or what you might call him, or John Ridgway, however you want to look at it. But I do think he's that big guy in the middle that they obviously like quite a bit. So he's out of Mableton, Georgia, Whitefield Academy. A lot of Georgia flavor in this class, and I think that's a good thing, man. I really do. I'm high on Georgia kids. And I'm sure we'll talk about Steven Johnson here in a minute, but same deal. You get a big athlete out of Georgia like that, man, the quality of competition they face down there is it's a different world. I used to go to some of these camps in Texas and all over, and it's an eye-opening experience. It really is a different deal down there. So I'm all for it, man. You can get a kid like that out of Georgia, and they seem to be willing to travel. So a lot of times you've seen in the past some of these guys end up at Louisville and NC State. To heck with that, man. If you can get them to Arkansas, you ought to try to get them.
Yeah, and I've obviously got a lot of connections to the state of Georgia also, and it's not just like Atlanta. It is those small county schools. I mean, I used to live in Wrightsville, Georgia, and I would drive by Herschel Walker. It's a tiny town. It says home of Herschel Walker up there, the friendliest town in Georgia, Wrightsville, Georgia. But I just drive by his mom's house, and there's a ton of talent that comes out of that tiny little town in Johnson County in Georgia. All those little county schools there really produce. So you mentioned Steven Johnson, number 71 ranked player in the state of Georgia. He was another guy that visited this weekend and decided to call the Hogs.
Yeah, 6'3", 330, as a matter of fact, a little
Defensive
bigger
tackle,
than we thought.
yeah.
But, yeah, defensive tackle out of Whitewater High School in Georgia. And I think he got a grade of 86. That makes him number 71 in the state of Georgia. And not super heavily offered, but did have some nice ones there, Maryland, Georgia Tech. I think Vanderbilt offered, and obviously had some other bigger schools interested in him, but happened pretty quickly. I think they offered this guy on May 17th. That sounds right. And then, so he's a product of the spring evaluation period, the first one under Sam Pittman. So yeah. I liked him a lot on film. I told you guys in the group chat last week. He's a space eater, in my opinion. Going to eat up a lot of space, kind of like Gerard, but also highly productive, with 6'8" wingspan. You watch his film, he just reaches out. You think you're past him, and he reaches out and grabs you, and you're done. 65 tackles last year. That's an awful lot for a DT. So, again, I think if you're going to roll the dice on one, you take the prototypical size, from the state of Georgia, playing against that level of competition. I think they've got something there.
And another one from the weekend, R.J. Johnson out of McDonough, Georgia, Eagles Landing Christian Academy, keeping it in the Peach State. I mean, they're, like you said, they're really, really targeting a lot of these guys over there, and a lot of strong connections. Obviously, Sam Pittman and Jimmy Smith, Scott Fountain would be another one, yeah. And R.J. is the number 58 ranked player in the state of Georgia, according to 24/7 Sports. 6'2", 180, listed as an athlete. What position is he going to play at Arkansas?
Well, I think he's going to be a corner. He actually goes a little bit closer to 6'3". Actually, out of Eagles Landing, man, I like this kid. He looks like $1 million, and he's the guy I told you last week.
Future in
about
media.
The voice.
Yeah.
I need to send you that audio from last week. You'll be impressed too. But really good kid, plays both ways in high school. I encourage people to watch the film for yourself, and if you tell me that you're not impressed by the first two plays on that film, then more power to you. I'll just agree to disagree, but he's a freak show. I think he's a guy that, you don't want to project too much and put doubt in anybody's mind that he can't play defense, but, man, if he couldn't, for whatever reason, you could probably flip this one over and have a pretty good receiver, in my opinion. So a lot to like about him. Another physical, big-body guy, long-limbed, really athletic. And the thing I've noticed about all of these guys here lately, when you watch their film, they're super physical. And that can't be overstated. That's a really important message at Arkansas. I hear that word all the time, as do you, in practice, post-practice, whatever it may be. That word is used a lot, and I think they're on the right ones from that standpoint.
Let's head a couple of states west and to Oxford, Mississippi, and Alex Sanford, the number 8 ranked player in the state of Mississippi, number 58 linebacker. How did they get this guy to Oxford?
Yeah, Ole Miss offered him, but, I could tell you, it was kind of an interesting deal. Alex came up on March 12th, I believe. Didn't even have an offer from Arkansas yet, right? And but you could tell as soon as that visit ended, by talking to him, I felt like, man, if they ever offer, of course, at the time they were in the sweepstakes for Tackett Curtis, one of their priority targets, and it's a case where you have to wait them out sometimes, and you have to make them tell you no before you actually move on. And there's nothing wrong with that if you don't get them, but it's nice to have options like this. A SEC body, 6'3", 240, really good-looking player. And, again, that's the thing you notice about linebacker recruiting right now. You look at Drew Sanders, Manny Powell, Chris Paul, even Everett Rousseau now, again, down in Georgia, currently committed to him in this year's class. He's 6'2", 225. Carson Dean, 6'4", 235. And now you add a guy like this, 6'3", 240, still in the mix for Brad Spence. He could be the fourth guy in the class, in my opinion. 6'2", 225 there. So a lot of really good-looking kids. And I've been impressed with this guy's production as well. 131 tackles, 25 and a half tackles for loss. that's impressive enough. And then you throw in 4 sacks and 6 forced fumbles last year. That's really key for me. So, I had the feeling he wanted to be a Razorback well before they offered him. They brought him in for an unofficial, then offered him a couple of months later when it was clear kind of where things stood with other targets.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all he needed, buddy. He was in the boat. He couldn't jump in fast enough. Really good kid there. I've enjoyed working with him and his father both.
Danny West joining us again. You can follow him at DannyWest247 on Twitter. Does a fantastic job covering Razorback recruiting for us. Now, Danny, the last few guys were some of the players that visited this past weekend, but there weren't all of them. There were some others. You did videos on most of the, stories on most of the unrecruited guys. Micah Tease was another one that you did an article on. Didn't commit, but a really highly regarded wide receiver out of Booker T. Washington in Tulsa, Oklahoma, ranked the number 133 prospect in the country on 24/7 Sports, number 3 overall in Oklahoma, 5'11", 180 wide receiver. What do you think about your conversation with him and where Arkansas stands?
I think they're hanging in there. They're still in the mix. Obviously, a lot of competition. He's already gone out and seen Notre Dame and USC, so that kind of tells you there's some big-time programs after this guy. And Oklahoma, obviously the in-state power there, Texas A&M, and what we know is that traditionally it's really tough for much of anybody to go into Oklahoma and pull one out, and most of the time when they do leave, they're going to Notre Dame, Alabama, LSU, Texas, those types. But in this situation, I think it's important to remember at some point, as a rule of thumb in recruiting, typically the visits will tell you everything you need to know. And if he wasn't interested in Arkansas, he wouldn't have made all those short trips over here so many times. I want to say upwards of 5-6 trips, if I'm just guessing, so far this year. So obviously he's really close with Luke Haas, the tight end commitment out of Bixby. And, we'll see where it goes. But Arkansas is hanging in there, 5'11", 180-pound wide receiver Micah Tease out of Tulsa, Booker T. Washington. I mean, you've had some success there lately. Can they do it again? Can you go in and benefit from another A.J. Green type situation? You've got his buddy here, Kawan Parker, playing corner. There's a lot of connections here, a lot of I think there's a lot for Arkansas to like in their standing, but again, that's a ton of competition you're going to have to beat.
And speaking of tough guys to pull out of Oklahoma, Arkansas did that with Luke Haas, number 2 ranked prospect in the state of Oklahoma, was able to get him in, and his brother was on campus also, wasn't he?
That's right. Dylan Haas out of Bixby, Oklahoma as well, 5'11", 180. We've got him listed as an athlete, and we know that he's being recruited as a safety. So Arkansas likes Dylan on the defensive side. He's got, Air Force, Navy, some smaller offers, Pitt State's in there, Northern Colorado, Tulsa. I don't know if Tulsa's offered yet, but South Dakota's in there. Really good kid. I think it's been impressive to watch the family kind of handle this situation where you've got one brother who's like a top 50 player in the country and the other is a little bit lesser recruited. Nothing wrong with that. But, I know Luke is really working on his brother, trying to get him here. The sister had already chosen to attend Arkansas. She's been there and done it. So kind of a cool deal there to, for his brother to have that opportunity. And obviously it doesn't take much of a recruiting analyst to figure out that Arkansas is probably going to have a pretty good shot there. But then again, Dylan may want to do whatever, he wants to do. So we'll have to wait and see. But a really successful visit, in my opinion, and it could be one to watch.
It's been a while since Arkansas has gotten like a true four-star defensive tackle, but Marquise Dill, 6'4", 290, number 57 ranked player in the entire country, number 13 overall in Texas, also just visited this weekend. Where does Arkansas stand with him?
So kind of comparing to Micah Tease a little bit. Also want to mention Micah is my brother's first name, so I don't see that name a lot, but that's always cool. But Marcus Dill, D lineman out of Garland, Texas. Again, man, another guy who's been here so many times that at some point the visits tell you everything. So that tells me Arkansas is still in this thing, very much so. But another guy who, he's got USC, Texas, TCU's way up there for him. and there's going to be a lot of competition. I think they're in a good spot, but he's kind of one of these intriguing guys. When we look back, can't wait for the post-National Day signing day chat this year. It's just been fun to watch him go from being an offensive recruit to a defensive priority at Arkansas, and he's got connections here in Northwest Arkansas. His grandmother's in Bella Vista. He's got an aunt in Bentonville. There's a lot to like there, and again, he's a guy who's been here several times, so no clue when this guy might make a decision, but I do think Arkansas is at least going to be a hat on the table at this point. They're in there for this one and really battling.
Danny, I'm going to get you out of here with an explosive multi-sport athlete in Robert Stafford out of Melbourne, Florida, number 196 overall prospect in the country on 24/7 Sports, number 12 athlete, number 40 overall in the state of Florida. What about him? He visited this weekend. Where do things stand right there, and what position do you think he'll play?
Yeah, another interesting one. We just talked about Marcus Dill being starting out as an offensive guy and now being looked at as defense. Same deal here. Except, Robert actually, they wanted him at wide receiver, and now suddenly they want him as a DB, 5'11", 171, and he used the magic words this weekend. So some eye-opening stuff here. He said, this is, I want to make sure I say it, it's home is how he said it. So he said, I've been here 3 times. They're recruiting me for a long time, so I'm showing love back. Mm-hmm. So, anytime I hear that word home, it kind of opens my eyes a little bit. It could be one to watch, but, man, I think this is a good thing. For me to sit here and tell you there's a ton of competition, when you mention Georgia and Oregon, Miami, that's a good thing for Arkansas. That tells you, you've gotten on the right ones and you're in the mix for them. But can they pull him out of Florida? I'm not convinced yet. Not ready to make a crystal ball pick. But, man, I'm starting to like their chances a little more than maybe even I anticipated at that point, at the point earlier this spring when I was doing some of these mock classes. I never really felt great about it, but I'm starting to heat up a little bit on this one.
All right, Danny, great stuff. Really appreciate you coming on for the extended segment. You stayed longer than normal, but really appreciate it. There's just so much to get to. We had to cover it all.
Yep, that's right. No, I enjoyed it. We can do it anytime.
All right,
well,
brother.
Maybe not next week because I may be taking off next week, Trey. I haven't told you that yet. But
all right. Well, next week, I think there's just one visitor on tap, right?
Well, I hope not. I think they're pretty much done with visitors at this point.
Real quick before you get out of here, Danny, what is what's the schedule coming up as far as calendar goes?
Yeah, as far as calendar goes, July 1st starts a dead period. So, the entire month except for the last week of July is going to be dead. So I know the coaches were getting at least a couple weeks of downtime coming up here. So, that's pretty much where it's at. This past weekend was pretty much the last, the big bang there going into the summer. And
you're right. I actually looked at it long. Veasan Lang is scheduled. He's just listed next on the list, but he's actually scheduled for September 30th.
Yeah.
So
I think that's the Alabama game, is it not? I could be wrong.
That sounds. That's right, because Alabama's the only home game in the month of October, and that's October 1st. So that's definitely what he's coming for. So, and he's from Alabama. Pike Road.
Yeah,
hopefully he's coming to see Arkansas and not Alabama.
Yeah. I think he is, buddy.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on, Danny. All right.
You got it.
See you, brother. All right, everybody. Danny West, at Danny West 24/7. If you haven't followed him, I think you see right there the kind of content that Danny brings to the table for us at 24/7 Sports. Worth the price of admission right there alone, Danny West coverage. And, he mentioned the post-NSD chat, where he just kind of reveals everything that was going on through the recruiting process. It's always a lot of fun. A lot of people say that's worth the price of admission. But with just $1 right now for your first month if you want to try it out. All right. I want to get to a couple of, kind of interesting things. So Arkansas right now has 5 4-star commitments, okay? And as we mentioned, number 6 ranked recruiting class in the country. It's going to be tough to hold that spot. But what they're doing right now, I think, and based on some of the things that may be coming down the line with some of the guys that they're in on, we could be talking about the potential of a top 15 class. I think definitely top 20 is in the cards for Arkansas. That's something. They've never had a top 15 class. I don't think on the composite they've ever had a top 20 class. They've had I remember one year they had a number 16th ranked class on Rivals back when we were at Rivals. Last year, actually, they were ranked 28th on the composite. 24/7 Sports individual site ranking. Again, the composite takes all the industry and averages them out. But on 24/7 Sports, they're actually ranked number 18th nationally on 24/7 Sports. But there's a couple of other guys that, in addition to guys that they could be adding, that could possibly see some bump ups. Dallas Young, he's the highest rated guy on Arkansas's commit list that's a 3-star recruit. He is actually almost a 4-star on every recruiting service, On3, 24/7 Sports, Rivals, and ESPN actually has him as a 4-star. So he could be a guy to look at as a possible bump-up guy. So watch out for Dallas Young, not RJ Young. He does a different show. But Dallas Young, 6 foot, 180 pound quarterback. And then Quincy Rhodes Jr., out of North Little Rock, Jacksonville, Arkansas. He is a 4-star on 24/7 Sports. So he's a 4-star on our site. Rivals has him a high 3-star. ESPN has him high 3-star. On3 has him a pretty high 3-star. So he's another guy to possibly look for, with a potential bump. But he's very close to making that level. Caleb James, guy that's been committed to Arkansas for a long time. Everywhere has him a pretty high 3-star. ESPN actually has him as a 4-star. Carson Dean, who is a 3-star everywhere except for on Rivals. Rivals has him as a 4-star. And Isaiah Augustave, who is a high 3-star on everybody's except for one service. And I think maybe if that service bumps him up to where he is on a couple others, we could see him possibly, because I think on 24/7 there's a good chance because he's pretty close there. So that gives Arkansas 5 4-star commitments currently, and then maybe 4 other guys, maybe 5, but 4 other guys who are rated 4 stars on other services. So there's actually 9 guys on Arkansas's commit list who somebody thinks is a 4-star out of all the recruiting services. 9 guys who somebody thinks is a 4-star. I think some more 4-star types are on the way. And then, of course, we mentioned Isaiah Augustave. Okay. I think we're safe to go to questions now. If you got a question, go ahead and get those in right now. We're going to go to those. We've gone about 37 minutes now. Let's see what we got here. Oh, yeah, before we get started on that, one last time. If you haven't signed up, it's just $1 right now for your first month at HawgSports.com, HAWGsports.com. Part of the 24/7 Sports under the CBS Paramount Global umbrella. Great company to be a part of. Super proud of that. Follow us on Facebook if you haven't done so already. I think there's I keep saying 85,000, and we may be up to close to 90,000 on there now. Also follow us on YouTube. Throw us a thumbs up or a like on both of those channels. Apple Podcasts. If you have not taken a moment to throw us a review on Apple Podcasts, we'd certainly love to have that 5-star rating and a review. Say something nice about the show. Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere else you can think of to find your favorite podcast. All right. Got a lot of Woo Pig Sueys. This lady wants me to send her a friend request. Blake Hunter says, what streaming software are you using? Okay, so it's actually just a free program called OBS. Actually, all this stuff on the side here, can you see that? No, it's over here. It's backwards for me. All this stuff over here and down here, I actually created all this on Facebook. So that's not a program, or not Facebook, on Photoshop. I actually created all this stuff on Photoshop myself. So it's not like a specific program or something, but there's a lot of others. StreamYard. I mean, I see people using all kinds of different stuff. And I've thought about like doing it where, we have different, like a split screen. I just feel like everybody's kind of doing that. And this is kind of how this show, I don't know, there's a certain look and feel to the show, So I like using OBS. Again, it's a free program, and you can add all your graphics and stuff that you want. So, Mary Otterson Joan wants everybody to send her friend request. Let's see. Chris Albrighton says, question, I understand we had our best pitcher out there the last game and he did well, but if they lose, they go home. So why not switch it out for a pitcher every inning from the 6th? Just a thought. Probably a question for Andrew Ellis. We need to get Andrew Ellis back on here. Andrew started with us full-time this past month. He was in Omaha for the whole College World Series. He was at the SEC tournament also. But Andrew does a great job, covers all sports, football, basketball, baseball. Has anyone ever committed on the show, says Lee Barber? No, we've not had any commitments on the show. We haven't had that. I mean, we've had like some, CBS Sports and stuff, which is, our parent company and stuff. People do that. But no, nobody's ever committed on the show. We also don't have, usually don't schedule guests. I mean, if y'all want me to do that, we've had a couple of people here and there as far as guests. And we've had, when we, have people from the network on, like when Arkansas is playing, different SEC schools, we'll have somebody, a publisher or a writer from that site and the network, do that. But we usually, just kind of keep it to us instead of having a bunch of guests. Dustin Hoofman says, I know Pittman is in the trenches coach, so what do you see from the OL and DL this spring and summer? Well, first of all, you got a battle going on at left tackle, right? I think Takias Crawford, we're going to see him in fall camp move from right to left. I think there was kind of a necessity to keep him at right tackle in the spring. And plus, they like to cross-train everybody at different spots, but to keep him there because Dalton Wagner was out. So you had a battle at left tackle that didn't really involve Takias Crawford, but I think we're going to see him battle Luke Jones when fall camp starts over that left spot. And just by the way coaches are talking about him, they really talk him up a lot. That just kind of foreshadows, I think, what we're going to see there. They returned 4 starters on the offensive line. It's a great situation to be in if you're a quarterback, if the wide receivers are up to snuff, which I think is going to, maybe not the peak level of Treylon Burks, but I think we're going to see, we'll see enough talent at wide receiver that they'll be able to make up and maybe distribute it a little bit more. Maybe overall talent is better than it was last year if it's not at the peak highest level with Treylon Burks. But to answer your question, multi-year starters on the offensive line. I think the fewest games that anybody started among those 4 is 13, and I think that's Brady Latham. So multi-year starters, and I mean started 2020, started 2021, and about to start 2022. At least, and some of those started, 2019 also. So that's definitely notable on the offensive line. And then defensive line, still the numbers probably aren't quite what you would like on the defensive interior. They did add some guys from transfer portal, from junior college, Torian Carter, TC. Torian Carter has a knee injury. He's going to miss some time during the season. That's one position where you really didn't need to lose anybody. I think you got to hope that Cameron Ball really emerges. Some of the guys you're bringing in out of the transfer portal and junior college, hope that those guys step up. But we could be seeing a lot more 3-man front again this year without maybe the option to do 4-man front as much as they would like. Byrne Bradley says there's someone on the roster that was likely to beat out Dylan Leach. Again, baseball stuff probably not my forte. Definitely not my forte. We can get Andrew Ellis on here soon. We'll get him to talk a little bit about that, and we'll answer some of your questions, Byrne Bradley. Marco Giles says, I wonder if teams feel like if we can beat the Omahogs, we're guaranteed to win the College World Series. It seems to be the benchmark. It's a good point. Certainly has happened the last couple of years. Chris Albrighton says, who do you see being our quarterback after this year? It's a good question, Chris. I mean, it could end up being Malachi Singleton. It could be Malik Hornsby. It could be one of the walk-on guys. And I've mentioned this before, Arkansas, the 2 walk-on quarterbacks, both of those guys were scholarship quarterbacks at Power 5 schools, So it's not like they're just your typical walk-on guy here to run the scout team. So it could be a lot of different players, but I think based on, kind of KJ's language, if he has another good year, I think we'll see him probably turn to the pros. He kind of said that at the bowl practices. He said that he never really considered going pro. He feels like he needs another year, and that's his words, need another year. Not need another 2 years or 3 years, which he has eligibility because of the COVID year. Lord, will somebody send Mary Otterson-Jones a friend request? I think I'm getting spammed. I guess. Mia Maria is spamming me with 4K Sports live stream. Mark Douglas says the dead period ends July 12th with NASA Webb Telescope. Hopefully many images available to the public. I'm looking forward to that, Mark. Have you guys been watching from the, For All Mankind, which is a pretty cool show on Apple TV? It's like if the Russians had beaten the United States to the moon, and then the space race that ensues, and like the butterfly effect, everything that changes. Like it's got Michael Jordan going to the Trailblazers and stuff like that. People avoiding assassination attempts. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool show. Dustin Hoofman says, oh, we got that one. Okay, I think we covered it, everybody. Dustin Hoofman says, get Eric Musselman on here. He might do it. I mean, he's on everything. He never misses a chance to be on social media, I can tell you that. Guy does a great job in every aspect. I was talking to somebody about that. Musselman's what? I think he came here when he was 55, so maybe 57 or so. But a guy with all the experience that he has, and to not just be like, I've got all this experience, I don't have to do all this stuff. Like, he does everything you would want him to do. Like, he's the perfect marriage of experience and, like, youthful energy and understanding. Like, not looking at technology. Like, there have been coaches, like back when Houston Nutt was here, there were coaches on the roster who were literally scared of computers, like afraid of them. And when they got Houston Nutt's computer, when they I don't know what they did exactly to get their hands on his computer because they wanted to see his emails and stuff, and he was just laughing his tail off because he's never used email. Thought it was hilarious. But anyway, yeah. All right. We had an interesting show today. Plenty of recruiting discussion. It was needed with Danny West. Obviously, it's going to get a little more quiet with recruiting as we kind of start gearing more towards the start of the college football season. As I mentioned, SEC Media Days less than a month away. June 18th, I believe, is the start date. Sam Pittman them go Wednesday, I believe. So I'll be there for that, of course. And then, right after that, I don't know if we're going to have a Coaches Media Golf Tournament. That always is a fun event and get a lot of information out of that. But, right after SEC Media Days, it's starting to, I think, August 3rd, I think, is the start of fall camp. So it'll be happening pretty quick before you know it. So it's a good time to sign up for HawgSports because it's just right around the corner. HawgSports.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network under the Paramount Global and CBS umbrella. All right, everybody. Thanks, Danny West, for joining us. Appreciate you guys for your questions and for tuning in today. And we'll be back with you guys next week. And it won't be long before we start doing bi-weekly shows. All right, everybody. This has been Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, and we'll catch you next time.